Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Year 4 Maths. I hope you're all well, and I look forward to seeing you as soon as we're able to back in school again. We're going to start every single morning with a warm-up. The warm-up will consist of two sets of questions. Two you might want to do in your head, and two of them you might want to jot down some ideas on a piece of paper. As you can see, the two questions on this side are mental questions that we'd like you to try and do in your head. These two questions are questions with the squares, are questions that you are going to try and do, hopefully, on a piece of paper. What I would suggest you do is, while you're working out the answers, is you press pause and then press play when you're ready for me to go through the answers with you. So press pause now. The first question, 186 plus 7, it's all about knowing your number bonds to 10, really. First job is to add on 7 to 186 is to add 4, to take that number up to the nearest or the next 10. In this case, we would add 4 on to make 190, and then this would leave us 3 more to add on, and that would make 193. Second question, how about 3 times 7? Why is this tricky? Why is this difficult? Some of you have come to me this year and said that you found the 7 times table the most difficult table to learn. So for this particular question, you could use what we've called commutative law this year. I'm sure lots of you will remember that word, and it means that you can switch the digits around in a multiplication sum and still get the same answer. In this case, 3 times 7, we could turn the digits around and make it 7 times 3. All of you are pretty good at your 3 times table. 7 3s would give you your answer, excuse me, of 21. The third question here, 467 plus 334. So what method did you use for this? I'm sure lots of you will have used the abstract method of column addition. That's what we've tried to build towards during the course of the year. But some of you might have even thought about, okay, what's an alternative here? And what we would have, the alternative here is to use partitioning to split the numbers up. So here you can see that we're adding the hundreds together. So 400 plus 300 will give you 700. Then we move to the tens columns. So 60 plus 30 would be 90. And then finally, we're with the ones column. 7 plus 4 would equal 11. And then what we would need to do is recombine those totals. So 700 plus 90 plus 11 would give us 801. And if we wanted to, we could check back to make sure that these two both agree. The final question is 14 times 3. Again, the most efficient method would be that of abstract column, short multiplication. Here you can see that we've multiplied 4 times 3 to get 12 and 3 times 1, and we've added the 1 we carried in to make it 42. Is there another way though? Well, we could have partitioned the number if we wanted to. We could have taken the 14 and broke it up into 10 and 4. And in this case, we would need to multiply both bits by 3. So 10 times 3 would make 30, and 4 times 3 would be 12. We would have to recombine the numbers again. So 30 plus 12 would give us 42. And we can check that against our answer from the abstract method to make sure that they agree. Okay, moving on now. The main part of our lesson this morning is going to be rounding. We're going to be learning to round decimal numbers to the nearest whole number. The star words this morning, the words that we're going to need that are going to be quite important to us, will be decimal, tenth, nearest, and estimate. Our in focus task this morning is focusing on a fruit from Southeast Asia called durian. Now, it's popular in Southeast Asia, but the rest of the world do not like it generally. That's why I've not heard of it, to be honest. The question is asking us to estimate the total mass or total weight of these baskets of durians. And you can see there we've got 21.5 kilos, 36.8 kilos, and 10.2 kilos. Now we've got to make an estimate of all of those added together. That doesn't mean we need to get the answer exactly right. It's about making a rough guess. The word estimate means guess, an educated guess. But we will come back to this at the end of the lesson, because once we've conducted and carried out our learning, it will make this a lot easier. So let's learn. Let's look at the following question. What is 10.2 rounded to the nearest whole kilogram? Well, to find this answer, first of all, we'd need to know which whole numbers 10.2 is in between. In this case, if we look at the number line, 10.2 comes in between 10 and 11. So we know that rounded to the nearest whole number, it will be one of those two numbers. We can see here 10.2 is closer to 10 than it is to 11. So we know that if we're going to round 10.2, it will be rounded down to 10. Question 2. Using the same method as before, could you round 36.8 to the nearest whole number? Well, here again, we need to know which number 36.8 comes in between. Okay, and in this case, it's in between 36 and 37. On the number line, 36.8 is closer to 37 than it is to 36. So if we were going to round 36.8 to the nearest whole number, we would need to round it up. This question is a little trickier. What is 21.5 kilograms rounded to the nearest whole number? So again, we need to think 21.5. What two numbers does that come between? So it's in between 21 and it is in between 22. But there is a problem here. It's not as straightforward as the questions we looked at just now. 21.5 is exactly halfway between 21 and 22. So we need to try and think, okay, what are we going to do here? And the answer is the same as it is when we're rounding whole numbers. If it is halfway, we would always round it up. Okay. So in this case, it will become rounded up to 22 kilograms. You can see there that it's halfway between, so we need to round it up. Your turn. What would 8.5 be rounded to the nearest whole number? Well, 8.5 then is halfway between 8 and 9. We would need then to round it up to 9. When we look at the nearest whole number, there is always a rule. When we want to round it to the nearest whole number, there's always a rule. If we look, for example, at 4.3, I want to round this number to the nearest whole number. So the first thing I would need to do is look at the 10th digit. If it is 4 or lower, we would need to round that number down. If it was 5 or higher, we would need to round it up. In this case, 4.3 would be rounded down to 4. Look at these questions on page 47 of your textbook. There is a range of coins there, and all of them have different measurements attached to them. So what would we need to do to round these to the nearest whole numbers? I want you to pick one of them and think to yourselves, okay, what are we gonna round? How are we gonna round this? Are we gonna round it down? Are we gonna round it up? Remember, you need to look at the 10th digit. Press pause now, and then when you've had a little think, press play, and we'll go through one of these together. Okay, I'm going to focus on this particular coin here. It has a thickness of 6.3 millimeters. So I would need to round that to the nearest whole number. What am I going to need to do to solve that question? Well, first of all, my first job is when I look at the number, I need to be looking at the 10th digit. If it's 4 or less, I should be rounding it down. If it's 5 or more, I should be rounding it up. So in this case, 6.3 would have to be rounded down because it has 3 in the tenths column. Were you able to round any of these others around, up or down? Your turn then. Have a practice. What is 2.8 rounded to the nearest whole number? Remember, look at the 10th digit. 4 or lower, we would round it down. 5 or higher, we would need to round it up. So, 2.8. If we're looking at the 10th digit, we have 8 in that column. We need to round that up then. 2.8 rounded up would make 3. 3 would be the nearest whole number. Okay, what we'd like you to look at now is your workbook. Okay, it's time for the independent learning task. In your workbook this morning, you need to look at worksheet 14 on pages 27 and 28 of the workbook. Press pause when you're completing the task and play when you've finished. There will be an extension task on the next slide. Press pause now. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you found those questions straightforward. What I want you to have a little think about is this extension task on the slide here. When I finish reading the question, I want you to press pause and then play when you want to restart it. So, Billy and Stevie have drawn lines on a piece of paper. Billy's line is 3.4 centimeters. Stevie's line is 3.5 centimeters. They both think that if they round their line to the nearest whole, they will have 3 centimeters. Are they both right? And can you explain your answer? Okay, press pause now and press play when you're ready to resume. Okay, welcome back. So, what have we done here then? We need to be able to look at both of these lines in turn, and we need to round them to the nearest whole number. So if I look at Billy's line, I know that Billy's line rounded to the nearest centimetre is either going to be 3 centimetres or it's going to be 4 centimetres. It's somewhere in between. So the first thing I would need to do is look at the tenths column. In this case, there's 4 in there. If you think back to our learning, our independent learning, 4 or less, we need to round it down. So Billy's line is rounded down to 3 centimetres. Stevie's line is at 3.5 centimetres. So if we look at the tenths digit, it's a 5. If you remember, we said 5 or more, we would need to round up. So Stevie's line will need to be rounded up to 4 centimetres. So the answer to this is that they're both not right. Billy is correct, but Stevie is not. Okay, our plenary then, our ending to the lesson. Do you remember this question? So we had the 3 tubs of this particular fruit, and the question was asking is, could we estimate how much fruit or how much fruit there would be there in total? And they gave us 3 numbers that were decimal numbers. Now, to make an estimate, we said it's just a guess. It doesn't need to be exact. So a good way of doing this would be to use our learning and round these 3 numbers to their nearest whole number. In this case, this one will be rounded to 22. This one would be rounded to 37, and this one will be rounded to 10. But what we would need to do to find the estimate of the total mass is we would need to add them all together. So 37 plus 22 plus 10 would give us 69 kilograms. So in practical terms, this is where we've been able to use and apply our learning to a practical question. Okay. Well done. Thank you for coming on the very first of our videos. I'm sure they'll get better as we go on. It's the first time I've ever done it. Please stay safe, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.